The snow was falling soft and slow over Winterfell, covering everything in white like a quiet blanket. The war was over. The Night King was gone. Daenerys too. But peace didn't come easy. The north was still raw with pain. The people were tired, broken, and looking for a leader, someone strong, someone familiar, and that's where it all began. Arya stood at the edge of the Godswood, her face calm, but her mind racing. No one knew what she had done, not even Sansa. Jon had gone south to talk with the Queen's Council, and he never came back. They said he went to the Wall. They said he took the Black again. But Arya knew better. She was there. She saw what happened. She was the one who did it. Jon didn't want the throne. He never did. He always said it wasn't his place, but the people loved him, they followed him, and that made him dangerous to those who wanted control. Arya saw the dagger coming before Jon ever did. It was quick, silent, right through the ribs under the cloak, just like she'd been trained. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She took his body herself, carried it into the dark of night, deep into the old crypts below Winterfell. Nobody followed her. Nobody saw her again for 2 whole days. When she returned, she wasn't Arya anymore. She wore his face. It was perfect. The shape of his jaw, the curve of his brow, the cold in his eyes. She had learned from the best. The faceless men had taught her well. Her voice, her walk, even the way he stood, she practiced it all. In the flickering light of the tombs, she became Jon Snow. The North was waiting. They needed their king. Arya walked into the hall like she belonged there. Heads turned. Eyes went wide, but no one questioned it. They believed. After all, who else could survive so much? Who else but Jon Snow? Sansa looked surprised but didn't speak. She only stared long and hard, her eyes sharp. Bran said nothing either. Maybe he knew. Maybe he didn't. Or maybe he didn't care. Arya, Jon, took the seat at the head of the table. And just like that, the North bent the knee. Winterfell was his now, hers. She ruled with a calm voice and a steady hand. She gave the people what they wanted, food, warmth, safety, and they gave her their trust. But there was always a fear sitting deep inside her. The kind that keeps you up at night. The kind that whispers when you close your eyes. What if they find out? Each morning she walked the halls in Jon's boots. Each night she sat by the fire, pretending to sip ale the way he used to. She trained in the yard, swung Longclaw, even visited the old Night's Watch brothers. No one ever questioned it, but it wasn't easy. Arya was always a lone wolf. She wasn't made for speeches and council meetings. She hated being still. She hated lying. But she did it. For him. For the North. For something bigger than herself. Some days she missed being Arya. The wind in her hair, her sword in hand. Her name spoken soft by those who loved her. But Arya Stark had no place in this world anymore. Only Jon Snow did. Then came the letters. From King's Landing. From the Vale. From Dawn. All of them asking for talks, alliances, trade. One letter stood out more than the rest. It was sealed with a golden lion. Cersei was dead, yes, but her son had taken her place. Tommen's half-brother, born from some secret affair, now claimed the throne. He wanted the North. Not in war, but in marriage. Arya felt her stomach twist. She was no queen. But Jon could never marry, not now, not ever. Still, the people wanted peace. They wanted unity, and saying no might bring war. She stared at the letter for a long time. Her hands shook. She needed time to think. That night she walked alone into the Godswood, just like she used to. The cold bit at her skin, but she didn't feel it. Her mind was far away, back in Braavos, back with Jaqen H'ghar, remembering his words. To wear a face is not just to look like them, but to be them. Their burdens, their choices, their pain, she whispered to the old gods, though she didn't know if they were still listening. The snow fell harder now. The wind howled through the trees. Behind her, a voice spoke. "You don't belong here." Arya spun around, her hand reaching for the sword on her back, but she stopped. It was a child. A small girl, no more than 10, staring up at her with wide, dark eyes. No one she recognized, no one who should have been there. "Who are you?" Arya asked, trying to keep her voice deep, like John's. But the girl didn't answer. She just pointed at Arya's face. "That's not yours," she whispered, then vanished into the trees. Arya stood frozen. The snow covered her footprints. The wind took the girl's words and carried them far away. The next morning, she woke up with a decision made. If she was going to keep wearing John's face, she had to be more than him. She had to be better than he ever was, even if it meant losing everything. The halls of Winterfell were never quiet, not really. Even in the dead of night, the old stones seemed to whisper, creaking wood, distant footsteps, the howl of the wind through broken windows. Arya, still wearing John's face, walked through them like a ghost. Every day the North sent more people, lords, merchants, even common folk who just wanted to see Jon Snow, the king in the North, the man who defeated the dead and killed the Dragon Queen. They bowed, cheered, some cried. Arya nodded, spoke little, and gave them what they wanted, hope. But hope is heavy when it's built on lies. A council meeting had been called. Arya sat at the head of the table. Sansa sat to her right, Maester Torrhen beside her. Davos, who had once followed Jon like a brother, watched her with careful eyes. She wondered if he could see through her. "The southern boy wants a response," Sansa said, her tone cold. "He offers peace, but only if you marry his sister. A Lannister." "Do you really believe they've changed?" Arya kept her face still. "I believe the people want peace more than they want blood. If this marriage prevents war, we consider it." Davos shifted. "And if it doesn't? If it's a trick? Then we deal with it," Arya said simply. "We're not weak." Sansa stared at her again, harder this time. "You've changed, Jon." Arya looked away. "War changes people." The meeting ended soon after. Arya walked out into the courtyard, past soldiers training, blacksmiths hammering, children chasing each other in the snow. She passed by the stables, where Ghost lay curled in a corner. The direwolf raised his head as she came near. His red eyes locked onto hers, confused. He didn't come, didn't wag his tail or step close. He just watched. Arya swallowed. She hadn't thought about Ghost, not really. She tried to mimic Jon's scent, his sound, but a direwolf was no fool. "Good boy," she said softly. Ghost didn't move. That night, sleep didn't come easy. She lay on the fur-covered bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts were racing. Jon never wanted any of this. He hated thrones and titles, but he would have done it for the people, and now she was doing it for him. At dawn, Arya dressed in black leather and rode out. She needed space, needed silence, needed to clear her head. No guards, no banners, just her, a horse, and the trees. She didn't go far, just into the woods east of Winterfell, where the snow grew thicker and the trees older. She dismounted, tied the horse, and walked deeper in. The cold was sharp on her face, the wind biting through her cloak. Then she heard, it was footsteps, not an animal, not a hunter. Someone was following her. Arya moved quick, slipped behind a tree, quiet as breath. Her hand gripped the hilt of her blade. The figure stepped into view, hooded, tall, alone. "Jon?" the voice asked. "A woman. Is that you?" Arya stayed hidden, heart pounding. The hood dropped. It was Gilly. Sam's Gilly. She looked older, worn by time and trouble, but her eyes were the same, kind, honest, and too sharp. "I got your message," Gilly said, looking around. "I wasn't sure if I should come." Arya stepped out slowly, trying to keep her voice steady. "You came alone?" Gilly nodded. "Sam's busy with the Citadel. And he said you'd want to speak privately. Arya said nothing. Gilly stepped closer. Jon, you don't seem like yourself. Arya forced a nod. Long days. Heavy crown. But Gilly was no fool. She stared hard, her eyes narrowing. You're not him, she whispered. Arya froze. Gilly took a step back, her face pale. You're her. Silence hung heavy. Arya didn't deny it. Couldn't. She looked down, breathing slow. I did it. And for him, she said, to finish what he started, to protect what he died for. Gilly shook her head, tears in her eyes. But this isn't the way. Arya stepped forward, desperate now. Please, I'm holding this together. If they find out, there'll be chaos. The North will burn. Gilly backed away. I can't lie for you. Arya reached into her cloak, pulling out a small satchel of gold. Take it. Go. Disappear. But Gilly didn't move. You're not a king. You're not even Jon. Arya's voice dropped. I'll do what I must to keep this secret. There was a long pause. Gilly looked into her eyes, searching for the girl she once knew. Then she turned and ran. Arya stood frozen. The snow fell harder now. The trees swayed, whispering secrets. She didn't chase Gilly, but she knew what had to be done. Arya rode back to Winterfell in silence. The snow blew into her face, but she didn't feel it. Her hands were cold on the reins, stiff with guilt. Gilly was out there. She knew everything. And if Gilly told Sam, if Sam told the Citadel, it would all fall apart. Everything. She had only wanted to keep the North safe, to carry Jon's name forward, to give the people a leader they could trust. But now it all felt like a noose around her neck. When she got back, the gates opened slow. The guards greeted her with "My king" and bowed like always. She nodded like always, but inside her heart was thumping like a war drum. She went straight to the war room, closed the door, locked it. She sat by the fire and stared into the flames. Her hands trembled. Her blade sat on the table beside her, shining dully in the light. She didn't want to kill Gilly, but Gilly could ruin everything. The next morning, Sansa came to her chambers. She didn't knock. You met with Gilly, she said, stepping in like she owned the place. Arya didn't look at her. I did. She was seen leaving the woods, alone, running. Arya nodded. And? Sansa walked closer. Her voice was cold quiet. She's missing now. One of the guards says he saw someone ride south in the night, but the tracks disappeared in the snow. Arya finally turned. Are you accusing me? Sansa didn't answer that. I just find it strange. A woman comes. She meets with you. She runs, then vanishes. Arya stepped forward. If you have something to say, say it. Sansa's eyes narrowed. You're not him. You're not Jon. The silence between them was thick, heavy like the snow outside. I don't know what you mean, Arya said slowly. But Sansa didn't flinch. I grew up with him. I know how he talks. I know how he stands, how he looks when he lies. You wear his face well, but you're not him. Arya felt the air leave her lungs. You knew? She asked. Sansa nodded. Since the first council meeting. But I kept quiet. I watched. I waited. Why? Arya asked. Her voice cracked. Because, Sansa said, you did what he never could. You brought the lords together. You gave the North peace, even if it's all built on lies. Arya stepped back. So what now? That depends on you, Sansa said. You can't keep this up forever. People are already whispering. Ghost won't come near you. The Maester noticed your handwriting doesn't match. Sooner or later someone else will see it too. Arya looked down at her hands, the hands that killed, stitched, and wore other people's faces. I'm not giving up the throne, she said. I didn't ask you to, Sansa replied. I just want the truth before someone else finds it. Arya's jaw tightened. If I tell the truth, everything burns. Not if we control the fire, Sansa said. There was a long pause. The crackling of the fire was the only sound in the room. Finally, Arya nodded. That night Sansa called a private council. Only 5 people, Davos, Brienne, Maester Torrin, Arya, and herself. They sat around the small round table in the solar, away from the servants, away from listening ears. "There's something you all need to hear," Sansa said. Arya sat still. She wore no crown, no fur, just black leather. Her sword was sheathed at her side, but her fingers tapped against it softly. Sansa stood behind her, hands folded. "The man you've been following," Sansa said, "is not Jon Snow." The room went still. Davos blinked. "What in the hells are you saying?" Brienne shifted hand on the hilt of her sword. Maester Torrin looked confused, but quiet. Sansa stepped aside. Arya stood. She reached up slowly, pulled at her face, and Jon Snow disappeared. Gasps filled the room. Brienne stood, eyes wide. Davos backed away, swearing under his breath. Only Sansa remained still. "It's me," Arya said, her real voice now. "Arya Stark. I killed the man who tried to take Jon's life. I saved his name. I led in his place because I had to." Davos shook his head. "You lied to everyone." Arya nodded. "Yes, I did. But the kingdom is alive because of that lie. The bannermen follow me. They trust Jon Snow. And I gave them that." Brienne looked torn. She stepped forward slowly. "Well, where's Jon?" Arya's eyes dropped. "Dead. Buried beneath the crypts." The room fell into silence. Sansa spoke again. "We have 2 choices now. We expose this secret and bring down everything, or we protect it. Keep Arya on the throne. Let her finish what Jon started." Maester Torrin rubbed his temples. "The realm won't accept it if they find out." "They won't," Sansa said, "unless one of us speaks." All eyes turned to Arya. "I never wanted to be queen," she said. "I wanted to see what was west of Westeros. But that world's gone, and I'm still here." Davos exhaled slowly. "Then what do we do next?" Arya looked up, her voice steady. "We prepare for a wedding." The castle buzzed with news. Winterfell hadn't felt this alive since before the wars. Banners were raised, kitchens worked day and night, servants cleaned halls that hadn't seen sunlight in years. The word had spread. Fast. King Jon Snow was to marry a southern lady of noble blood, a Lannister. Arya walked through the halls, her boots echoing softly. Her face was once again Jon's. Every nod, every glance, every voice called her Your Grace. She smiled, gave short responses, stayed strong, but inside everything twisted. Sansa stayed close. Too close. She spoke for Arya when questions came too sharp, and she warned her when cracks began to show. "You can't afford to slip now," she kept saying, "not when the whole realm is watching." The bride-to-be arrived at dusk, escorted by 50 men, and a golden banner that made Arya's skin crawl. Her name was Laera Lannister, young, soft-spoken, and raised in the capital. She had golden curls, a careful smile, and eyes that watched everything they met in the great hall. The lords stood in lines, the banners of the north behind them, stiff and proud. Laera stepped forward, bowed low. "Your Grace, I am honored." Arya nodded, deepening her voice. "Welcome to Winterfell, Lady Laera." The hall clapped politely. Wine was poured. Dancers played music by the hearth. But Arya kept watching. Laera. Something about her didn't sit right. Later that night, Laera came to Arya's chambers, alone. She shut the door behind her and looked straight into Arya's eyes. "You're not him." Arya froze. Her hand drifted slowly toward her belt, but Laera just sat down unbothered and poured herself wine. "You think we didn't know," she said. "Half the court whispers, the other half listens, but no one speaks out loud." Arya sat across from her. "Then why agree to marry me?" Laera smirked. "Because it still benefits us. The North is stable, strong. The Lannisters need that. And frankly, I'd rather marry a clever liar than a soft fool." Arya. Didn't reply. Lyra leaned forward. You're smart. I respect that. I won't expose you. Not unless you give me a reason to. Arya nodded slowly. Then we understand each other. Lyra raised her cup. To truth in shadows. They drank. The wedding was set for 3 weeks later. During that time, Arya kept herself busy. She trained in the yard, gave orders in court, listened to Sansa's advice, and sat through long, boring meetings with Lyra's handlers. Everything moved like clockwork. But there was something else happening too. Whispers. People began asking quiet questions. Why doesn't Ghost follow him anymore? Why doesn't he visit the crypts? Why does the king walk differently, speak with a new rhythm? Arya tried to stay ahead of it. She spread rumors of old injuries, talked about visions from the gods, even had Maester Torrhen fake documents. But lies stack fast, and some didn't hold. Brienne of Tarth remained distant. She trained the guards, kept order, but barely spoke. Davos stayed silent too, though his eyes always followed Arya like he was waiting for her to fall. One night, Arya stood atop the walls of Winterfell, looking out at the snowy fields. Her breath hung in the cold. The wind tugged at her cloak. Sansa joined her. "They're scared," Sansa said. "Of what?" Arya asked. "The silence," Sansa replied. "The quiet before something bad. They can feel it, even if they don't know what it is." Arya nodded. "Then maybe we need a distraction." Sansa looked at her. "What are you thinking?" "To the wedding. We make it a spectacle, invite the whole north, lords, free folk, even those from the south. We make it big, loud, full of music and fire, something to blind them." Sansa considered it. "That might work, but it won't stop the truth. Forever." "I don't need forever," Arya said. "I just need enough time." Sansa didn't ask what for. 3 days before the wedding, Arya went to the crypts, alone. She passed the statues of her family, Lyanna, Ned, Robb, even Jon's, the real Jon, carved too early, too fast. His sword placed wrong, his eyes too soft. She stood before it for a long time. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Behind her the wind blew through the tunnels. "I didn't want this. I thought I could carry it for you, but it's heavier than—" "I thought." No one answered. She placed a small piece of wolfwood on the ground, a carved token, something their mother used to make. She turned and left. But someone had been watching. A shadow moved behind one of the pillars. Silent, careful. They stayed hidden until Arya was gone. Then they stepped forward, looked at the statue of Jon Snow, and smiled. The morning of the wedding came with grey skies and heavy snow. Winterfell was lit with lanterns, fire pits, and banners that whipped in the wind. The castle hadn't seen a crowd this large in years. Lords from the north, envoys from the Vale, even a few bold southern knights who wanted to witness the strange union of wolf and lion. Arya stood in the small chamber where Jon used to dress for battle. Now it had become a place of silence. She wore black and silver, the king's armor cleaned and polished. Her sword hung at her side, the blade too familiar in her hand. Her heart pounded, not from nerves about marriage, but because everything felt like it was getting too close to the edge. Outside, drums were already playing. Pipes whistled, voices rose in cheer. But inside her it felt like a storm waiting to burst. Sansa entered without knocking. She wore deep red, and her cloak was lined with white fur. Her face was unreadable. "It's time," she said. Arya nodded. As they walked through the corridor side by side, Arya could feel the weight of every stare. Soldiers nodded, servants curtsied, lords bowed their heads. Everyone believed in the mask she wore. Everyone believed they were about to see their king marry a noble bride. The godswood had been transformed, flowers and fire mixed with snow. A wooden arch stood under the ancient tree, wrapped in white cloth and golden threads. Lyra waited there, smiling like a true queen, her hair braided high with lion pins. Behind her, 2 knights stood with stern faces, hands on hilts. Arya walked slowly toward her, each step louder than the last. The ceremony began. The old gods were silent, as they always were. The weirwood tree watched with bloody eyes as the vows were said. The lords clapped politely when Arya, still Jon, took Lyra's hand. A marriage of peace, a union of houses, a bridge between the wild north and the burning south, but Arya felt none of it. Her fingers barely moved as they held Lyra's. Her mouth spoke the words, but her mind stayed sharp, listening, waiting, because something wasn't right. She noticed it in the way Lyra's knights stood. Their eyes scanned the crowd, not like guards, but like men ready to act. She saw it in Davos, too. He stood apart from the others, arms crossed, looking around with his brow furrowed. Sansa's fingers twitched at her side. A signal, then it happened, a loud crack. At first it sounded like a torch falling. Then steel rang out, screams followed. From the back of the Godswood, riders charged in. 5 of them, dressed in black and red, no banners, only blades. One leapt straight from his horse, cutting down. A northern guard with a single swing. Assassins. Arya shoved Lyra behind her, drawing her sword without thinking. The faceless girl was gone now. Jon Snow stood in her place, fighting like he always did, fast, fierce, unbreakable. The lords backed. Away! Some drew weapons, others ran. Sansa was gone, vanished into the trees, protected by guards. Arya clashed blades with the nearest attacker, spun around, dropped him with a stab to the side. Another came. She ducked his swing, elbowed him in the throat, ran him through. Drat. Rest of the northern soldiers reacted fast. Brienne stormed in, shield up, roaring orders. Davos grabbed a fallen sword and joined the fight. Lyra's knights moved too, but not to defend. They turned on the north. Lyra shouted, "Stand down!" But her voice was swallowed by chaos. One of her knights slashed at Arya's back. Arya turned just in time to block, but the blow knocked her to one knee. Snow splashed into her face. He raised his blade, then dropped, an arrow through his throat. Sansa, standing on the wall walk above, held a bow in her hands. Her aim had not forgotten. Within minutes the attack was over. 3 assassins dead, 2 captured, 1 escaped. Lyra's knights, both slain by Arya's hand. Blood soaked the snow. Arya stood still, chest heaving. Her hands shook from adrenaline. Ghost appeared then out of nowhere, standing at the edge of the Godswood. His red eyes fixed on her. He growled, not at the assassins, at her. Lyra approached, her dress torn at the hem, face flushed. "I didn't order that," she said, her voice firm. "They were supposed to protect me." Arya didn't answer. She kept looking at Ghost. Davos limped over. "We've got the 2 in chains. They're not talking yet, but their blades, their Valyrian steel." Arya turned to him. "From where?" Davos shook his head. "That's the question, isn't it? The wedding was never completed. The lords were unsettled. Some whispered of betrayal. Others demanded justice. That night Arya sat alone in the war room, her face still Jon's, her cloak stained with blood. Lyra entered. "No one's blaming you," she said. "You fought. You saved me." Arya stared at her. Why would someone try to kill us on the day of peace? Lyra walked slowly toward the fire. "Because peace scares people more than war ever did." Arya didn't respond. "Tomorrow we question the prisoners," she said. "And if I find out someone sent them from King's Landing—" Arya stood, her eyes cold. "I'll burn their house to the ground." The dungeons beneath Winterfell were colder than the snow outside. The air hung heavy with dampness and old stone, and the only light came from flickering torches along the narrow hallway. 2 men sat chained to the wall, blood on their faces, dried sweat on their brows, and defiance still burning in their eyes. Arya entered with Davos and 2 guards. She was still wearing Jon's face, though it felt tighter now, like it was beginning to itch from the inside. The prisoners didn't look scared when she stepped in. One of them even smirked. "You're not him," the man said. Arya paused. "You know me?" "No," he replied, "but I know lies. And your eyes don't match your voice." Davos stepped forward and punched him hard across the face. The man's head snapped back. The other prisoner tensed but stayed silent. "Names," Arya said, stepping closer. "Houses. Who sent you?" The bleeding man laughed. "You kill me now or you kill me later. Doesn't change the truth. You're not the king, just a ghost in his skin." Arya's hand moved to her dagger, slow and sure. "I've killed men." "Oh, for less," he smiled through cracked lips. "And yet you need us alive." She leaned in closer. "No, I need one of you alive, not both." The second man flinched as she turned to him. "I'll ask one more time," she said. "Who sent you?" The man looked around, weighing his options. Blood on the ground, broken fingernails, the sharp steel glint of her blade. Then he spoke. "House Redwyn," he whispered. "Gold passed hands. Orders came through sealed ravens, meant to happen during the wedding." "Who paid them?" Davos asked. The man hesitated. "A Lannister. Not the girl. Someone else. Called himself Sir Harwin Lannister. Claims blood to Cersei's line. Wants the throne back." Arya stepped back. "Redwyn. Lannisters again. The South hadn't changed." "Send word to the Vale," she told Davos. "Tell them I need their ravens. I want every ship from the Arbor searched, every coin tracked. If this Harwin Lannister wants war, I'll give him a reason to regret it." Davos nodded and left. Arya stayed for a while, staring at the two men in chains. She thought of all the masks she had worn over the years, the countless faces, the lies that built the world around her. And still, somehow, she was always seen. She left the dungeons and climbed the old watchtower. The snow had eased for the first time in days. The sky above was silver-grey, and the forests below stretched wide and still. Ghost sat at the edge. Staring into the distance, Arya came up behind him. He didn't turn. "You still don't trust me," she said. Ghost let out a low growl. Not angry, just sad. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she whispered. Ghost stood, padded slowly, away and disappeared into the trees again. Later, in the great hall, the council gathered. Sansa, Brienne, Davos, Maester Torrhen, Lyra, and a few key lords. Tension ran like ice through every word. "We know who sent them," Arya announced. "A Lannister pretender, connected to Redwyn gold. They wanted to remove both me and the bride." Some lords growled, others looked nervous. The Lannister name still carried weight, more curses than pride. "We won't fall into their game," Arya continued. "We won't march south blindly, but we will prepare. Send ravens to the bannermen, double the watch. No one leaves or enters without my command." Lyra stood beside her. "I will write to King's Landing. If this Harwin is using our name, we will deny him publicly." Sansa narrowed her eyes at Lyra but said nothing. The meeting ended soon after, but as the lords left, Brienne lingered behind. "Your Grace," she said, firm but unsure. "May I speak?" Arya nodded. The room emptied, only the two of them remained. "I served Jon," Brienne said, "and I swore to protect House Stark. That means truth." Arya didn't move. "I've been watching you, studying you. And I believe Sansa is right. You're not Jon." Arya didn't speak. Brienne stepped forward. "But you're something else. Something this realm might need. Someone who understands fear and war and sacrifice." Arya finally met her eyes. "I don't want the throne," Arya said, "but the wrong hands will burn it all." Brienne nodded slowly. "Then I'll stand by you. But the lies, sooner or later they'll come for you." Arya turned toward the fire. "Let them." That night, Arya sat alone in the godswood. The old tree loomed over her like a silent judge. She took Jon's face off. "Let the cold touch her real skin again," she whispered. A name into the wind. The name of the man buried below the castle. The man she had tried to protect. The man whose identity she had stolen to save the world he left behind. Then she whispered another name. Harwin Lannister. He had declared war in silence. Now she would answer in blood. Winterfell had changed. The wedding that was meant to bind peace. had turned into a silent call for war. The halls weren't filled with laughter anymore. They were filled with whispers, weapons being sharpened, and messages being sent by Raven every hour. The North was awake now, alert, ready. Arya stood by the old training yard, watching the new recruits clash swords, fall, rise again. The older soldiers barked orders. The blacksmith barely rested. Sansa had taken over supply lines. Brienne drilled. The guards twice a day. Everyone knew what was coming, even if no one dared say it aloud. Harwin Lannister hadn't sent more assassins, not yet. But spies had been caught near the wall. One was found dressed as a merchant, another as a stable boy. Both carried gold coins stamped with a lion's face. Arya had them hanged before sundown. She couldn't afford mercy anymore. Inside the castle, Davos spread a large map on the table. Red wine spilled slightly over the coastlines as he pointed toward the Reach. "Red wine ships have moved," he said. "They're gathering near Old Town, not openly but enough to notice. If Harwin plans to strike, it'll come through the sea, maybe even through the arbor." Sansa leaned in. "Do we strike first?" "No," Arya said. "Not yet." The others looked at her. "We let him come closer, let him think we're waiting, then we hit him when he least expects it." Lara folded her arms. "If he's bold enough to strike during a royal wedding, he's bold enough to come straight for Winterfell." "Good," Arya said. "Let him try." That night, Arya walked alone through the halls. The moon cast pale light through the narrow windows. Shadows danced across the stone. She found herself outside Jon's old room. She hadn't been inside since the first day she wore his face. She opened the door. It still smelled like him. Leather, fur, the faint ash of fire. The sword rack stood empty. The bed was neatly made. A small carved direwolf sat on the windowsill, worn at the edges from being handled too much. Arya stepped in. She removed Jon's face slowly, carefully, like removing a bandage from an old wound. She set it down on the table beside the bed and looked at her reflection in the small mirror. Her own face stared back. Not Arya the child, not the girl who chased cats or danced with Needle, not even the assassin. This face looked harder, older, worn and maybe ready. There was a knock. It was Sansa. Arya didn't hide. She let Sansa see her, face bare, armor off. "Still sure about this?" Sansa asked. Arya nodded. "You could still run," Sansa said. "Leave. Go west, like you always wanted." "I could," Arya said quietly. "But then all this was for nothing?" Sansa stepped closer, placed something on the table beside the face of Jon. It was a folded letter, the seal broken. "It came from the Eyrie," she said. "The Vale will stand with us. They've pledged 5,000 men." Arya let out a breath. "We're not alone anymore," Sansa added. The next morning, the walls of Winterfell saw black. Banners rising on the horizon. Not many, but enough to send a message. Scouts returned within the hour. Harwin's men had landed at White Harbor. Lara slammed her fist on the table. "So it begins." "No," Arya said. "It ends." She stood. "Gather. Every rider, we march at dawn," Davos raised a brow. "To White Harbor." "No," Arya replied. "To the coast past it. If Harwin wants a siege, he won't get one. We'll cut him off before he reaches the gates." Brienne stepped forward. "Do we take prisoners?" Arya looked at her, cold. "Only one. Harwin. The rest, leave to the wolves." By the next night, the North was on the move. 1,000 riders rode beneath the black and grey banners of House Stark. Freefolk warriors, led by Tormund Giantsbane, marched beside them. The Vale's knights would arrive in 2 days. Arya led. Them all, still wearing Jon's face, his cloak, his sword. She was no longer hiding in it. She had become something else. The wind howled through the trees as they rode, the sky heavy with snow. It felt like the old days, when the dead marched and the living stood together because there was no other choice. But this time, it wasn't death that marched. It was vengeance. and Arya Stark was ready to deliver it. The wind roared over the cliffs of the eastern shore, tearing at banners and cloaks alike. Below, the dark waves slammed into the rocks. Harwin Lannister's ships, 20 strong, sat anchored in the bay, their sails half lowered, their soldiers spilling onto the snowy land. They expected a march through soft ground, a slow siege on Winterfell, but they got wolves instead. Arya struck at dawn. She came not through the road, but through the pines. The North rode beside her, their horses silent, their breath steaming in the cold. Tormund led the wildlings on the left flank. Brienne charged the center. The Vale hit from the right just as the sun broke over the water. Harwin's men didn't even have time to form proper lines. Arya rode ahead, face set like stone. She cut down the first knight who crossed her path, then another. Blood splashed across her furs. Her sword moved like it knew where to go, like it was guided by something more than instinct. The battle didn't last an hour. Red wine mercenaries tried to flee to their ships, only to find the docks already burning. Sansa had sent a second force by sea during the night. Davos led them, cutting the escape off entirely. By midday, the snow was soaked with red, and Harwin Lannister was in chains. They brought him before Arya in a circle of men. His gold cloak was torn, his face bruised, but he still smiled when he saw her. "So the bastard king shows his face," he said. Arya dismounted. She pulled off Jon's face slowly, let it fall in the snow. Harwin's smile faltered. "You," he whispered. Arya stepped forward. "Jon Snow is dead, but the North lives." Harwin laughed, blood in his teeth. "You think they'll still follow you?" "After. But this, when they find out." Arya leaned in close. "They already know, and they chose me." She didn't give him a chance to speak again. Her blade went straight through his throat, clean, quick over. The silence after was heavier than the battle. The soldiers around her didn't cheer, they didn't cry, they just stood still, watching the woman with no face, the girl who had worn her brother's skin to save them all. They didn't call her queen, but they followed her back through the snow. Back at Winterfell, there was no feast, no dancing. The fires burned low, the walls stood high, and the people breathed a little easier. Arya stood atop the battlements at dusk, watching the sky. Ghost came to her this time. He sat beside her, his red eyes calm. She reached out. This time, he didn't flinch. Sansa joined her. "It's done," she said. Arya nodded. "The lords want to name you queen." Arya looked over the trees. The wind was colder now. The world felt still. "I didn't do this to wear a crown," she said. "I did it to stop the bleeding." Sansa didn't smile, but her eyes softened. "That's exactly why they trust you." Arya looked down at her hands, still scarred, still rough. She thought of all the names she had worn, the faces, the lies, and the people they had saved. "Let them call me what they want," Arya said. "But the truth stays between us." Sansa nodded. "Always." Arya turned and walked down from the walls, the snow crunching beneath her boots. She passed soldiers, children, farmers. Some called her Jon, some bowed, others just watched in silence. But none turned away. That night, she sat by the fire, alone. No mask, no armor, just a girl with a blade at her side and the weight of a kingdom on her shoulders. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, she let herself rest.